success for me is leaving a legacy for my kids and grandkids. I want them to catch dad and papa committed to excellence in everything they do. I want them to catch me in excellence at every opportunity, whether it's giving a talk on stage or building a company or playing out in the woods or whatever it is. I want them to catch me in excellence. I want them to know that it doesn't matter where you came from, one person can make a difference in the world. And they're watching dad and papa do that.
Step into the world of success with Your Brand Amplified, the ultimate podcast designed to unravel the intricacies of thriving businesses. I'm your host, Annika Jackson, and I'm on a mission to uncover the stories, strategies, and secrets that have propelled entrepreneurs and business leaders to success. I am so pleased to have HR Huntsman on the show today. We're going to be talking about leadership, and I will point out right now that HR has a new podcast that goes along with his work that I am now going to follow. I'm really looking forward to listening because I love to hear different perspectives on leadership, what it really means, what it takes to be a strong and good leader. So I'm just really excited that you're here today.
Annika, it's an absolute pleasure. It's an honor to be on your show. Thank you for inviting me.
Now, what interested you about leadership of all topics?
Well, I never considered myself a leader growing up. I grew up in a pretty dysfunctional, broken, alcoholic home. Leadership was never something we talked about. I was simply trying to survive, escape, do the best I could to, build something out of that, climbed out of that hole, joined the military, and I was always fairly sharp as a kid. I was a computer programmer. I liked electronics and stuff. And I simply found myself consistently trying to create and make things better. But I never considered myself a leader, but I always tended to rise both in the military, then in college, and then in business. I just tended to rise because I was very curious about how things worked and how to make things better. And long story short, I wanted to make the world a better place. And at age 28, I started my first company. So there we go.
Okay. There we go, indeed. What was that first organization?
So the first organization was a humanitarian nonprofit organization bent on making the world a better place. We drilled wells and built orphanages and built drug and alcohol rehab centers and did counseling and worked on the streets here in Tacoma area with the homeless and food programs and clothing programs and after school programs for kids, anything we could do to make the world a better place stemming from my broken childhood. And so what I fell in love with is building the teams. I didn't realize, I figured it'd be the projects and changing lives, which of course I'm immensely proud of. But Annika, what I fell in love with building teams and building people to do great things around the world.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's definitely something we'll have to talk about offline as well, because we're very service mission oriented.
Okay.
So essentially you're saying that your leadership style was servant leadership, whether you knew it or not.
For sure.
Yeah.
That term it just began being used back then in the early 90s, and Ken Blanchard was servant leadership, and absolutely helping people become the best version of ourselves, which is now the vision statement for Leaders Edge, helping people become the best version of themselves and focusing on their teams is the focus of my work then, and certainly my work now with leaders all around the country.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was a really good run because you had the nonprofit for about 21 years.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. And I imagine that you also learned a lot about leadership, being a good leader, building team, all of the things that you're talking about through that experience.
Oh, for sure. Made a lot of mistakes, a lot of scar tissue. I could probably write a book on how not to be a leader, but yeah. Started from scratch, just myself and my wife. When I retired a few years ago, we had 200 people working in five countries around the world. So I learned a lot about human dynamics, organizational psychology, business strategy, how to build great teams, how not to build great teams. And so learned a lot from that now I try to pass on to all the business leaders that we work with now.
Yeah. And what was that shift from being a leader, learning all the skills, giving back into, and nonprofits are a business entity,
For sure they
right?
are.
A lot of people think about
100%.
them very differently, but you have to treat them the same if you
You
want to be
do.
successful.
You
So,
do.
how do you take that into the more corporate world, into business coaching, and then eventually starting, being out speaking more, and
Yep.
then being a coach and starting Leader's Edge?
Sure. I was actually curious how that would play. In fact, I was at a business conference in San Diego during that transition, and I knew I had a great track record of building teams in the nonprofit world. So I knew I could work with humans. I mean, as a nonprofit leader, shout out to all the nonprofit leaders. You have to be exceptional at vision casting and storytelling, and because you're trying to raise, in our case, millions of dollars to fund all these projects while building the teams. I mean, you don't get to sell widgets. You're selling vision and passion and world change. So I didn't even know how well it would translate into the for-profit world. In fact, I'm at this conference in San Diego considering launching Leader's Edge with all the experience I had. And I had a business leader tell me, well, your nonprofit world isn't going to play in the for-profit world. It's just too different. And so I thought, is that really true? And it turns out that all for-profit businesses are working with humans as well. And I learned that all business is people business. And if you're good with people, you can be good with business. And you can learn all this stuff about finances and, SEO. I mean, all the business stuff, you can learn all that stuff. But the human dynamics and motivating people and inspiring people and understanding how people work, that's the core of any business. It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I love what you just said. And it's so beautiful because, 9 years ago, I went through divorce and I was a stay-at-home mom at the time.
Yeah.
I worked from home. I did have a little bit of businesses around my daughter's schedule, but then I had to go full bore right back into the workforce. But most of my experience in the time between getting married, having my daughter, and then going back into the workforce was as a community volunteer, was
Yeah.
leading volunteer organizations and honing my skills there. And 100% those skills are transferable. But people don't always see that at first. So I'm
That's
really
right.
glad to hear that you had some people who said, this might not work, but you proved them
Yeah.
wrong. You were able to find the right people to work with who
Yeah.
understood the value that you added.
Absolutely prove them wrong. And it just proved the principle that, again, I'll say it, all business is people business. And if you can focus on developing and seeing the best in people and helping them become the best version of themselves, that's just good business. There's good ROI there. There is good profitability there with being, human focused, human centric, seeing people as human beings, treating them with respect and honor. Everybody wants to be seen, heard, and valued. Building a business around those things is just good business, and it's good humanity.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's such a strong point because I think people do think about the processes more sometimes. They hire
Yeah,
people for a skill set, but you have to hire people who are the right fit for your vision,
sure.
your mission, your values,
Absolutely true.
not just their skill set. So I'd love to hear some of the ways that you work with people, some of the things that you try to pull out of leaders to help them really see their vision through and be the best that
Sure.
they can be.
Well, I think I happen to bring a unique dynamic to this because of my background growing up, and then my focus for almost 25 years was very much development of teams. And so I have that very human centric understanding, but I also have a pretty good systems brain. My dad worked for NASA before he passed away. And so I kind of inherited some of his systems and process thinking. So I developed my entire own system on how to build businesses, first with my own, and then all these other CEOs began asking me, H, how are you building what you're building? And so we developed this, what we now call a performance engine that focuses on 6 systems of business. And we walk methodically through the businesses with the people and focusing on the people and the systems and the processes and strategy and marketing and hiring, blah, blah, blah. So combining all the systems and processes that are necessary for good business infrastructure, along with good human dynamics, I think we do both pretty well because you have to do both well in business.
Yeah, absolutely. So you talked a little bit about your, 6 tiers and walking leaders and CEOs through this. So what, though, about culture? Because, obviously in today's world, we're also looking at how does AI streamlines some of those processes for us, but the people component will never go away.
Will
Uh,
never go away.
So, how can business leaders think about building a workplace culture that is highly effective, that has buy-in from every team member, where people don't see it as a chore, right? They see
Yeah,
this
that's right.
as their passion and something that they're really invested in.
Yeah. One thing that we try to do early on is to just make CEOs, business leaders, very aware that people are looking more than ever, Anakin, you know this, more than ever, they're looking to find meaning and purpose in their work. Gen Y, Gen Z, they want a place that connects with community, that connects with each other. They're looking for that. So for all these Gen X and Boomer and upper millennial CEOs, I say, listen, people are spending about 90,000 waking hours at work. We as leaders
Mm-hmm.
owe it to them to provide it to be a great place to come to work. We call them destination workplaces.
Nice.
So I challenge all these CEOs and leaders. You need to think about your number one job is to keep and retain top talent. That's your number one job.
Yeah.
It's not the widgets that you're selling are not your number one job. Your number one job is to attract, keep, or retain top talent. And that is, to your point, the culture that you build. How engaging are you? How well do people feel seen, heard, and valued? Are you maximizing their skill sets? Do they feel like they get to participate in their own success? So creating these communities, creating these workplaces where people can share, we call it creative conflict. Are people allowed to share ideas and innovation? Are you mining for those ideas with people? How much collaboration is there? Are people allowed to disagree and share their viewpoint? All those things incredibly important. So this ambiguous thing that we call culture, this blob of we don't really quite know what it is, all those things are clearly responsible for creating a culture that attracts and retains talent.
Yeah. As somebody who is, and has been in leadership, but, not the top tier roles, and somebody who is also in the top tier role, it's really interesting going in between those two and finding that fit. Like you said,
I bet.
Something that's really important to me, you said you did a little research on me, so you probably know, is my daughter. So
Yeah.
I need to have a schedule that's going to be flexible, that's going to allow me
Right.
to pick her up, take her to school.
Yep.
I am following my mom's footsteps. My mom was a working mom, but she made us hot breakfast every morning, you know, and yes, my daughter is old enough to be independent, but she's going to be away soon enough. So
Right.
this is something that I really enjoy that, is part of our bond. So I want to be there for those moments with her, be able to take her to her school activities. And it's not always easy to find a workplace that will allow you to do that unless you create your own. But luckily I have found myself in a position where I'm now working with organizations as well as my own work that are flexible. And so that's something I think is a really important shift. Obviously we have been working from home, moving on to Zoom and all these other technologies. Sure. We're seeing some of that shift back. So I'd love to hear, have you had to walk any of the CEOs through that process of figuring out when is it okay to have a little more flexibility in the day-to-day schedule? Why would it be important for people to be in person versus be, hybrid or remote?
You bet. We have those conversations all the time. CEOs, I am one. I've run my own companies and I work with dozens of CEOs. They're in a tough spot with a very fluid workforce now. A workforce that in the last 5 years especially has dramatically changed in how they approach work. What I share with CEOs, the world you grew up in is not the world you are in. Those are two different worlds. And Mr. or Miss CEO, you need to realize and you need to adapt or you're going to be left behind. So one of the keynotes that I speak is, and principles that we share is how to win the war for talent. And part of that is we call the map to success, mastery, autonomy, and purpose. Everyone coming to work with you wants mastery. They want their skill sets developed. They want autonomy. We all want voice in our own future. And we want to work at a place that has purpose. So working with those people, like you said, flexibility is just the tip of the iceberg. It's not flexibility you want. It's time with your daughter that you want. So a good leader, a good employee understands that connection, and your purpose, Annika's purpose, is to make sure she's connected with her daughter while she still has time with her in the house. So it's not just flexibility, it's purpose. And the great leaders connect with each of their team members and they figure out, what do you want? What are your dreams? What are you going for? And it's probably not top of the list, is probably not to advance ABC Widgets Incorporated. Like, you have your own dreams, right? And so we try to convey to the leaders that connection, collaboration, purpose, autonomy are incredibly important to the human condition, and connecting with your workforce to figure out how to do those things with really good conversations is the way to go.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. What about skill sets? Because I sometimes have hired people because they seemed like a good cultural fit, and
Sure.
they maybe were more of a junior person, and
Yeah.
tried to give them the ability to have autonomy, to think about things in a bigger way and not just be seen as the junior person in the room. But I feel like now, when we're recording this, we're getting to a point where we're seeing that, some people need to be upskilled. For instance, when it does come to thinking about tech skills and being in artificial intelligence, or all of the different data
Sure.
centers that are going to be built, and we need people with the right skills for that. You also see that there are a lot of government employees who are either leaving or going to be leaving soon, who have great skill sets, who are going to be great people to go into business. So how do we manage this push pull of making sure, having a lot more people coming into the open job market,
Right.
right, in the United States, making sure that we have the right jobs for them and that we can either find the people with the right fit, the right skill set, or that we're willing to train them up.
Very good. First, understanding both those things are incredibly important. You said it earlier that culture fit trumps skill set all the time, but that doesn't negate the fact that skill
Right.
set's important. You can't just be a really good person and believe in what we believe and
No.
then be crap at what you do. So understand that both are important. So we talk about the talent journey. The talent journey begins for us anyway with a talent profiled in a seat description, and that leads to really good interviewing and the hiring processes, to onboarding and to training. So understanding that 5-step talent journey is critically important. So from the outset, clearly identifying the talent profile of the person you're looking for, both skill set and culture fit, designing a really good, clear seat description, what we call a seat description, everything that's going to be required of them, including technology, and then doing some kinds of experiential training or skill assessments on what is required, and looking at the potential down the road, and then figuring out where this person might be capped out skill set wise, and here's a good seat for them. The high potential, high capacity people, well, we have other seats for them. But you're absolutely right, figuring out either good assessments or really good an interviewing process that can determine this person's potential ceiling, and then
Mhm.
finding the right fit for them in our company.
Yeah. What are some of the hurdles that you see most often when you are working with a new client? And that they could be, a CEO who's been in the workforce but hasn't changed with the times, or somebody who's a new CEO and new leader of the organization and trying to figure out which way to go, which way is up.
Sure. I would say, Annika, probably the biggest misunderstanding that we see is a misunderstanding of the concept around accountability. So we hear this all, it's the number one request we get. H, can you come help us with our team? No one wants to work anymore. There's no accountability. Can you help build accountability into our workplace? And they are thinking of some sort of combination of carrots and sticks. Their view of accountability is some sort of carrot stick combination, carrots being 401k and bonus structure and pay and vacation and flexibility and these extrinsic motivators, and sticks, of course, being some sort of metric or punitive thing, whatever it is. And so having to educate CEOs on the true psychology of accountability and motivation, and getting them from what we call snorkelers, just working on the surface of the outcomes, to scuba divers and understanding what drives commitment, what drives motivation, what drives inspiration. That's probably the number one misconception that we have to shift mindset in the leaders we work with. How do we get real accountability from our team members?
Mhm. It's funny because we do hear about this about the younger generations. that they switch jobs more often,
Sure.
that
Sure.
maybe they, if they find something, they don't like the way something's working, they'll just quit on the spot. They may not have that sense of accountability or that sense of, I don't want to say integrity. That's not quite the right word, but you know where I'm trying to go with.
Sure, sure, sure. So I'm Gen X. So I come from a generation that, right? I mean, latchkey kids. I'd walk myself home from school, make my own lunch, do chores. Mom and dad's still working. So I mean, you point me at a wall, I'll just run through it. You tell me to you tell me to do something, I'll do it better than you thought. So what we have to understand, and I'll say it again, the world we grew up in is not the world we are in. And I personally do not buy the narrative that Gen Y and Gen Z are typically lazy, or you can find lazy people in every generation. There's plenty of lazy Gen Xers and boomers, but they do need to be led very differently. And in my opinion, it's the leaders that need to change, not so much the generation. It is a give and take. They need to be led differently. So what we're seeing from, let's say, Gen Z is a reaction to Gen X, who would just drive ourselves into the ground. Family comes second, 60 hours a week is normal. That's your job. Take it and shut up. They're looking at that and they're saying, no, thank you. That's not no, thank you. And so they do want better work-life integration. They do want more consideration for family values. And they're asking for those things pretty loudly now. And the generations that don't understand, again, the deeper purpose they're living for, those leaders are going to be bypassed. And the leaders that can adapt, and oftentimes when I say adapt, leaders hear lower standards. That's not what I said. Leaders that can adapt and still maintain high standards, those are the workplaces that are going to win.
Yeah. And is it case by case? Are there any special tips and tactics that you can share with us?
Tips and tactics, number one, would simply be sit down, talk, and listen. Stop talking and listen. Ask really good questions. Connection is vital. Just read a Gallup poll just a few months ago. 77%, get this, Annika, 77% of Gen Y and Gen Z feel severely or moderately isolated. Now consider the tethering device we have in our phones. It's like an umbilical cord, yet they're saying disconnected and isolated. Oh, that mobile phone, that cell phone, it's a facade. It's faux connection. It's not real. And so if we can provide real connection, real listening, real good questions in the workplace, we can provide this deeper sense of connection, and that's going to brand engagement, connection, loyalty, retention, productivity, et cetera. So the leaders that will understand that the workplace is now a place of human connection and understand that and offer that and work on that, again, they're going to be the workplaces that win. And the leaders that simply say, I'm giving you a paycheck, do your job, they're going to get by, they're going to lose. They are losing in the workforce.
Yeah. Yeah. I have some examples of that.
I'm sure you do.
Organizations I've been in who act just like that did not last long at those.
Right.
And being a Gen X, I do value, obviously that purpose, that mission driven, that, all of those the same things. And
yeah.
I agree. So many times people don't take time to actually listen to understand.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah. And just I'll bounce off what you just said about being mission driven or task driven. Another a study came out between purpose driven companies that weave meaning and purpose and mission into everything they do, and task driven companies. The engagement at purpose driven companies was 80%. The engagement at task driven companies was 40%. So again, this isn't just touchy-feely, ooey-gooey. There's a lot of ROI around being a purpose-driven company and a good connected company. There's good ROI. And I'll say it again for probably the third or fourth time, good humanity is good business.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. What does success look like for you and for your clients? Is it different for each person, depending on what the goals are? Are there overarching themes that they may not even realize?
Sure. For me, I'll speak personally. Success for me is leaving a legacy for my kids and grandkids. I want them to catch dad and papa committed to excellence in everything they do. I want them to catch me in excellence at every opportunity, whether it's giving a talk on stage or building a company or playing out in the woods or whatever it is. I want them to catch me in excellence. I want them to know that it doesn't matter where you came from, one person can make a difference in the world. And they're watching Dad and Papa do that. They're watching me do that with our clients. We change the world one business at a time, one leader at a time. The goals for the clients can vary. Usually, believe it or not, it's usually not around a financial goal, which one might assume they'll come to us and say, hey, can you help us hit $100 million next year or whatever? It's usually not that. It's usually around team engagement, team retention, team culture, team cohesion, team collaboration. And maybe it's because the people that reach out to us, we have maybe a common view of how the world should work. But most of these companies that reach out to us are pretty people-centric, and they want to get better at that. They're not just dollar-driven. I'm sure those people exist. Those aren't the people that tend to reach out to us. So success for our clients is better cohesion, better collaboration, better ideas, higher retention. And of course, all of that leads to better profits.
Exactly. And are there one or two specific avatars of clients that usually find you or that you find?
We work really well in the manufacturing construction industry, though we've had a lot of success in law and medical as well. So across the board, really, we work with marketing. Again, all business is people business, but we do a lot of really good work in the construction and manufacturing industry.
Yeah. And H, you mentioned speaking. You are a professional speaker as well.
Yes,
I'd love
ma'am.
to hear a little bit more about that. And are the topics that you're teaching and you're coaching the same ones that you speak about? And has that evolved over time?
That's definitely evolved over time. From the nonprofit world, I talked a lot about connections and family and community. That obviously transitioned a bit when I got into the for-profit world. Now I'm talking about hiring and retention and team culture and business strategy and organizational development. But yeah, I've given about 4,000 talks around the world to about 400,000 people. My largest talk I was a keynote at the New Year's Eve celebration in Kampala, Uganda. And I got to talk about 65,000 people. If you want to have fun, you need to see 65,000 Africans dancing at midnight. Oh man, what a celebration. So yeah, I give talks from the stage now around business development, organizational strategy, and I told you one of the keynotes that I'm being asked to speak on a lot is winning the war for talent development. So I love moving a room. I grew up with this really introverted, socially awkward kid from this broken, home and family life. And now I love on stage and moving a room to do better and greater things.
Amazing. I want to turn it to your podcast now.
Sure.
How did you decide that was the next evolution of Leader's Edge?
That was actually a hard sell for me because I deeply love working with people personally, face to face. I love what we call moving a room. I love speaking in person. So I've been asked a lot of times to do webinars, and it doesn't feel as personal to me. But I was convinced that, I'm Gen X, so podcasts are a way to reach a deeper and broader audience, to connect with more leaders, which I love doing. I want to leave the world a better place than I found it. So I love connecting with leaders around the world, where we can share ideas about leadership, spark each other, inspire each other, motivate each other, learn from each other, and hopefully make the world a little bit better place. So that's what my podcast is for.
Yeah, fantastic. And the journey's ended up being something that you're enjoying, even though you were not quite sure you would?
So one of the challenges was, where am I going to put it in my schedule? I tend to be very, very busy.
This is very true.
Right?
I'm trying to schedule this podcast with you.
I know, right? How am I going to find the time to do, my goal this year is to do 60 podcasts this year. And so trying to find the time for it is the biggest challenge. But Annika, honestly, I've actually fallen in love with it. I just did 2 this morning, and I'm connecting with these cool leaders that are doing different things. We got drivetanks.com, and we got people building their own tool lines. I mean, just really cool stuff. So it just fires me up to connect with all these leaders. I'm loving it, actually.
Amazing. And sometimes people start podcasts for a purpose. So is this something that you see as another thought leadership tool? Is this a tool where you're able to make more connections for potential clients? A little bit of both? Or was it just something you wanted to just add into the world to just share your message with more people?
Yeah, both things are true. They're not mutually exclusive. I love shining a light on leaders. I can't wait to have you on the show.
Oh,
I can't wait to talk about how awesome you are. So I do love just shining a light on leaders and all the creativity and innovation that's out there and learning from each other. I just love that. And if it does lead to just a natural, makes sense for us to work together, that's always there as well, of course.
yeah. Well, and I imagine because you have traveled all over, you do keynotes and speeches all over. Not everybody gets the opportunity to do that. So that's where podcasting is also a
It's true.
fantastic way to, because that, because I do it remotely as you do, I get to meet people from all over the world and meet the most interesting people that I never would have known, never would have had a connection. But now, if there's
Yeah.
something going on that's in their world, I can pick up the phone or I can send them an email.
Right.
And that's such a beautiful thing. It's
I
something,
agree.
yeah, that I didn't even know it would open up my and expand my
Yeah.
worldview that way.
Yeah.
So,
It really energizes me. I love connecting with all these leaders. Absolutely. It's fun.
yeah. So you are helping CEOs become great leaders of
Yep.
organizations, work well with their teams.
Yep.
You are doing global speaking engagements. Now you have a podcast. What's next?
So
Are you writing
two,
a book? Are you
absolutely. Yep.
okay?
I'm in the middle of writing a book that is based on our proprietary system that I created to build businesses, the Leaders Ed Performance Engine, going back to do some more work in Africa. So I'm turning 60 this year. So I'm raising a bunch of money to go back to Kenya to drill wells and build clinics there in Kenya. So working with leaders who are going to, pitch in and do that. So I'm creating my own nonprofit again, another nonprofit. And I'm a veteran, so a veteran-owned small business will be, working with government contracts now, reaching out to that sector as well. So my 60th year, in fact, my sixth decade, I think is going to be my biggest ever. Everything I've learned, I'm excited about this next year, these next 10 years. So big things on the horizon.
Really love hearing that. I just turned 50 in December, and I feel like
Congratulations.
thank you and congratulations on your upcoming birthday. But I do feel that I'm exactly who I'm supposed to be.
Yeah,
I have who I'm always supposed to have been, and I have other goals in mind over the next few
yeah,
years. And it's a really beautiful place to be that you don't imagine when you are young, when you're going through struggles, when you're
right,
dealing with family dynamics, trying to figure out how you're going to get out of your shell and become the
right.
person you're supposed to be.
I'm still becoming that person.
Yeah.
I told my leadership group, we have an executive leadership group that I meet with every month, these young business leaders. And I told them, I feel more energized, more passionate, more zeal now at 60 than I think I've ever felt before. I'm wiser than I've ever been. I've learned what not to do. I've got the scar tissue. I've got the experience. I honestly feel like this next decade is going to be my best ever. We have family night every week. My daughter-in-law, I call her Dodre. She calls me Padre. Padre, when do you think you're going to slow down? When are you going to retire? I said, I don't know, maybe 75. She's like, 75. I said, I'm still passionate about what I do. I get to help all these cool people. So, no, I'm still gung ho.
Amazing. We're going to lead people to your website.
Oh,
And
thank you.
that's the source of truth for, everything you're doing. Is there anything else that you want to share with our audience when they're thinking about their own leadership journey, or when they're even thinking about if being a CEO is not their goal, right? How do they
Sure.
find the right person, the right organization to work with?
I mean, we'd love, reach out to us, yourleadersedge.com, or just email me. I'm just a personal guy, HR@yourleadersedge.com. I believe in leadership, whatever the level, whether it's CEO or some other place in the organization. Leaders change the world. And if I can help them just become a better version of themselves, I'd be honored to give that a shot.
Yeah, fantastic. I love when I have these conversations. I feel inspired to keep on doing what I'm doing, to be the best version of myself, to help other people be the best versions of themselves as well. We definitely have to connect on some of the Africa front because I do projects in Ghana.
Oh,
So,
fantastic.
yeah, yeah. So I'd love to hear what you're doing there more. That could be a whole other podcast.
Sure.
So thank you for being here, HR. And I wanted to ask, do you have a final thought that you want to share?
Well, I want to thank you. I mean, you are a joy. You're a bright spot in the world. Thank you for the work that you're doing in highlighting leaders. I just celebrate you and praise you, leaping off the cliff to begin this thing. So I'm actually going to turn the spotlight back on you and thank you for doing what you're doing, making the world a better place. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. I mean, that's what we're here to do. So I love that we can do it together.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Annika.
Thank you, HR. And thank you to everybody who's watching this episode or listening to it on your favorite platform. I'll be back again with another amazing guest, but let us know what you think about this episode. Reach out to HR via LinkedIn, via his website, his email, and let me know what else you want to see, right? I always am open to suggestions, ideas. I love to hear from people and hear what they're getting out of each episode. It really means a lot. Thanks for listening or watching to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. Don't forget to leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast listening platform. And if you want to learn more, check us out at yourbrandamplified.com.